Marhaba, and welcome to the Matrix Green Pill, where real people connect.
Hello and welcome back to the Matrix Green Pill podcast. I'm Hilmarie Hutchison, and today I'm so excited to welcome John Snyder to the show. John is a dedicated husband and father of two, one of whom has special needs. His personal journey has ignited a deep-seated passion for environmental causes. Fueled by a desire to make a positive impact, John strives to bring much-needed awareness to innovative practices like Acquamation, combining his love for family with a commitment to a sustainable and environmentally conscious future. John, welcome and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
John, could you please tell our audience a little bit about you and your background?
I grew up in San Diego. It's a very beautiful outside place. So I love being outside. Even to this day, I'm not one to sit behind a desk. I'm outside as much as possible. I just love being out in the woods, out in the environment, the beach, always just somewhat close by. Going through high school, I was an only child, and so I had this dog, and we're all trying to figure out what we're doing in that age. And not having any siblings, I would just take my dog for long walks down in the canyon by our house. I just loved being in the outdoors, spending time with him, and that's carried on. I really enjoy that still to this day.
So you had a very natural upbringing during your childhood.
I can't say that I lived out in the woods. For the suburbia area that we were at, it wasn't overbuilt. It wasn't like I was living downtown or something like that. And I would either walk or ride my bike to get to school. In this day and age, that's just not safe. I grew up in the area where we played outside until it was dark and that kind of thing. Now kids are more inside and they're playing video games. None of that existed when I was growing up.
Yeah, the world has certainly changed a lot. So what personal experiences initially ignited your passion for environmental sustainability?
Yeah, I'd go to, say, youth camps and different things where we'd go up, summer camp or weekend camps or snow camps and things like that. It was just a great time to be outside. I've just always enjoyed that. And having grown up in San Diego and so close to the beach, there's just a peacefulness you get being able to just kind of sit there and listen to the waves come crashing in, kind of drown out just everything else, whether it's the outside noises or sometimes just the noises in your head, the monkeys on your back, some people would say. And I just find that a great way to do that.
This brings me to talk about you converting a 1970 VW Bug into an electric vehicle. Can you tell us about that journey? What motivated you and what were some of your challenges and learnings from this project?
It's actually been electric for about 15 years, so it's been a very long journey. My youngest son has Down syndrome and autism. In junior high, we were living in Long Beach, California, and every year we would kind of try to figure out what was the best placement for him scholastically. And he was very delayed in the special needs classes and things like that. And we found a place in downtown Long Beach that we really felt the teaching and everything would just be ideal for him. And what we didn't really take into account, understand, or even able to think about, downtown Long Beach is real close to the ports. So you've got all the big ships coming in and out of there. The freeway leading from the ports to LA is, about less than a mile away. So you got the trucks going up and down there all the time. And then on the other side of the freeway is Wilmington, where all the refineries are refining the gas that goes in our cars, mostly in Southern California and other parts of the States. Later, I found out that that area has the highest level of asthma in the nation. And during that time, my son's autism just skyrocketed. Prior to that, he was saying 2, 3, 4-word phrases sometimes, and we lost all verbal communication during that time. It was devastating. We went to all kinds of different things, trying to figure out what was causing it. And people said, people with Downs, this happens at this age and all this stuff. And to me, everybody argues about what causes autism. Oh, it's not us. It's not the vaccines. It's not the plastics. It's not the electromagnetic field or whatever these things are. But no one can say, pinpoint, this person got autism for this reason. And to me, it's a soup of things in the environment. I think my son was really impacted by that during that time period. So I started looking at how can I lower my impact on people with autism. And a lot of people call that your carbon footprint. And the thing that we do the most is we drive cars. And electric cars weren't really a thing yet, but it's like, the only car that was available at the time was the Tesla Roadster. It was a 2-seater. It was over $100,000. I'm a family of 4, and there's no way I'm spending $100,000 on a car that can't carry my family. So I started looking for options. And I saw that there was kits on eBay and people were converting, or at least could convert VWs. I'm like, hey, this is great. Those are fairly easy to work on. My parents had them when I was kids. I hated them. They were noisy. They smelled. They had no power whatsoever. This is perfect because I'm going to eliminate all the things I hate about the car. Make it electric. It will have power. It won't be noisy, and there'll be no smell or fumes. It's a long story of how that kind of happened, but I call it, I'm on version 4.4 now. I've got Tesla batteries in it. I don't have the Tesla motor. I've got a third-party motor called the Hyper 9, but it's running on Tesla batteries. And now that Teslas and those cars that have been wrecked, their parts are available. And whether it's a Leaf, the Fiat 500, any of those, you could harvest the parts from and build a car. And the VW is a fairly easy car to do that with. I tried to start a company of converting other cars, but everybody wanted their Mercedes and their Beamer and their Suburban. And there was just so many different kinds of adapters and all this stuff that had to be made. And I never really found a crew of people that could help me. I've always kind of been on my own. I guess that whole being an only child.
What a remarkable journey, though, to have gone down this path to find a solution for a much bigger problem. That's fantastic. Now, let's change gears and talk about Acquamation. I know another one of your passions. This is a concept many people have probably not heard of. So could you please explain what Acquamation is and what led you to advocate for this eco-friendly alternative?
I like the fact that you use the term changing gears because I'm one of the few people that still has a transmission in an electric car. So I still use that in my Bug. COVID really had a huge impact. I'm floored by people that say that it was just a farce put on by the government or something like that. No, this was worldwide. And at the height of it, I'm in Orange County, about 250 people were dying a day. And in LA County, it was 400 to 500 people a day. And when you start adding that up by the end of the week, and then you start counting all over again, I hate using the term, but it was a lot of bodies. I've always kind of been a solution kind of person. People would come to me and say, hey, John, what can we do about this? What are we going to do with all this stuff? And I actually created some temporary storage to kind of help out with it. And people were like, hey, why don't you get a crematory? And I was kind of like, well, I guess people are kind of going that way. You saw a lot of people doing GoFundMe pages because they couldn't afford the burial. So I kind of looked into it and quickly realized, being a person concerned about the environment, that was a horrible way for an end-of-life solution. And somebody introduced me to exactly that. I call it Acquamation, pronounced a little bit differently here in America, but basically water cremation. The technical term is alkaline hydrolysis. So you're using alkaline, or sometimes referred to as lye, which is the same chemical in a lot of makeups, facial creams, things like that. So it's not something that, it's banned as a carcinogen and things like that. In that process, it's hot water, it's pressure, and then the potassium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide to dissolve the soft tissue. You end up with the same material when you're done, because whether you're doing a flame cremation or you're doing water cremation, it's the bones that are left over. It's just how you got to that place. And then you crush them into dust and you end up with that urn. Well, if you've done flame cremation, you've used a ton of energy you got to get that thing up to 1,500, 2,000 degrees. That's a lot of natural gas to burn and create that. But because of that, your crushed bones look like ash, just like you've come out of your fireplace or you have a fire pit down at the beach, that kind of thing. Where with Acquamation, it's more like a powdered sugar. It's bright white, like a piece of paper, or like you just bleached your whites, coming out of the laundry type of thing. And then you also end up with 20% more in the urn. So you need a bigger urn to put it in and use 90% less energy, and there's no harmful fumes, there's no greenhouse gases. And we also exclude heavy metals from our bodies during cremation. So that gets released into the atmosphere. And with this, that never happens. So it's a much cleaner, safer, environmentally friendly option.
What a remarkable solution to have come up with during a time when certainly there was a need for new solutions. And as you say, with so many deaths during COVID, it was certainly a good time to look at this. Was Acquamation your idea, or was it someone else's idea that you adapted? Where does it come from?
It definitely did not come from me. It's actually been around since the 1800s. It's not a new concept. It's not as old as cremation, which kind of goes back to the beginning of time. But they've mostly used it for livestock, getting rid of animals, particularly if they're diseased. This is how we got rid of mad cow and Ebola. It's because, if you were to cremate those bodies, whether animals or human, that's just releasing all those toxins into the air. And then what happens? Where here, you end up with a liquid that's sterile. There's no DNA, there's no RNA. And if there's any diseases, it's literally been boiled away, because with humans, you get it up to almost 300 degrees. With pets, it doesn't get quite as hot, but it definitely eliminates all the toxins and disease in the process.
What has been the reaction of people to this method of end of life?
Well, everybody seems to think, hey, this is a great idea. The truth is, and particularly in this country, a lot of your people are from other countries. I should say a lot of your podcast guests, and probably your guests listening. But in America, talking about death is really taboo. Nobody wants to talk about it. So it's kind of like, hey, that's a great idea. I'll get back to you. I ordered a machine for doing the humans, and I just realized how difficult that is. Now that COVID's gone, everyone's just kind of like, let's put our head back in the sand and forget about this until it becomes a crisis again. I'm just not the kind of person. Like, can we do something about thinking about this for the future? But people talk about their pets a lot, and they'll spend money on them. Since the '08 crisis, a lot of younger couples have kind of either put off having kids because they really weren't sure what their career options were going to be long term. And they went to pets. A lot of those pets are getting older now, and they've got to figure out what to do with them and their end of life options. And so a lot of the things that we can do for humans, you can have doulas to kind of explain and counsel you through what the different options are, or you go to a funeral home, or as you mentioned in a previous podcast, you can have an app now and kind of go through that and decide what you want to do. But none of that really exists for pets. And a friend of mine came up to me and said, hey, what you're doing is great, but when my pet passed away, I had all these questions and I had no one to go to. Why can't we have like a funeral service for pets? So I'd like to set up a chapel where you can have that kind of thing. And a lot of churches in the evenings have A meetings or different kind of scouts or whatever come in and use the facility. I would love to have some small groups that these people could come into, and they're pet friendly. Bring your pets with you, and let's sit in a circle and talk about how are you today? How are you grieving? How are you getting through this? And have first, group sessions, and also have some counseling available, one-on-one if some people feel they need a time for that. And so those are the kind of things that I want to bring into this. Same type of thing. If you have a funeral and at the end you want to then go and aquamate and be a part of that process, have a machine there available to do that. So that's kind of my vision of what I want to do.
That's excellent. When you say that's your vision, how far down the track are you with doing or having a solution for pets?
Not far from here, we have a machine that's already been going for a couple years. I've got my own machine on order and will be here. It's actually finishing up this week, and we'll probably be able to get it. It's coming from back east in Indiana. I'm not sure how long it's going to take because the weather right now is kind of crazy, but in about a week, it should arrive here and we can install it and increase our availability for being able to do this. But it's still a lot of education. I'm talking to vets and animal hospitals. Just like the human funeral industry, they're kind of used to doing things one way. And although the state is pushing for greener solutions, that hasn't really got to this level yet. So it's a lot of educating people and letting people know that it's available. And then I want to grow into, I have places that I could rent and do an actual funeral service. Somebody wants to do that, but that's something I want to expand into as I get bigger and then have the capital to create that.
Sounds like an excellent solution. You mentioned the need for education, and also earlier on you spoke about talking about death is almost a taboo topic. What are some of the misconceptions or the hurdles that you have faced when introducing people to Acquamation?
For humans, it's extremely regulated, as death should be. This is a mob where they just, can we say kill people and eliminate them? So there's obviously these rules in place for that. And in California, they've legalized it for humans. Now, in all 50 states, it's legal for pets, but in about half the states, and it's growing, it's legal for humans and people, but it doesn't exist everywhere, really, for either version. California wrote into the law because we're kind of in an arid environment. Here in Dubai, which is a desert, we're not quite that arid, but we rely a lot on water to keep our area green, and we recycle a good portion of our water. So anything that goes down the drain goes into their cleaning, whatever you call those big plants that sanitation department uses. And then you create clean water that's pumped back into the ground, and then eventually that's pumped back into our houses. Even though what we're creating is a sterile, there's no DNA, there's no RNA in the water, because it goes through this, it's really the perception, it's the ooh factor. The other thing that people are kind of misconception is they don't think they get the earn of, most people call it ash, but it's really cremains. And you get 20% more. So you need actually a bigger urn. And if you want to split that up between your siblings, grandkids, you can make jewelry out of it. You can spread it out over the ocean, the desert. They have Be a Tree now. You can buy a tree and have your family and all your pets. You would still take the cremains and spread it around the tree. So there's so many different things you can do. Aquamation or water cremation, you do the same thing with that urn of material as you would with regular cremation.
You certainly have shown throughout your life and all the things you've done, your commitment to sustainability and being environmentally conscious. What have been some of the most rewarding moments or achievements that you've experienced in your journey?
Well, there's a couple different things. My son, having Down syndrome, Down's people are just so loving. It's been a challenge to negotiate the autism part of it. It's been devastating at times, seeing him lose communication. We've gained some of it back, but we've never gotten back to where he was. At one time, we've tried different communication devices and stuff like that. But he just has this unconditional love. Seeing him smile and laugh and be himself is just amazing. And it has taught me a lot about what love is. And that's why I call my company Agape Aquamation, because agape in Greek is love. There's 8 different words in Greek that are referred to love, but agape is the unconditional love. And if you follow the teachings of Christ, whenever he uses the word love, he uses the term agape. My son, I think, is the closest I can get to feeling that. But a lot of people feel that from their pets and their animals. And that's the other reason why I really want to do this is that love that we get from them. We come home and we've been gone all day and we get home late and, our dog doesn't come and scold us for being late. They come and they jump and they're excited and they're just, oh my God, you're home. This is so amazing. And, so both of those things. Now, in terms of the eco part and having created an electric car, it is the quietest. Like I say, there's no noise, there's no smell, and the fastest VW you'll ever see because you won't hear it coming. It's like it's coasting. People think I'm coasting into something, and then I take off, and there's still no noise. And they're looking at people who are old enough to know what it should sound like. What the heck was that? That's kind of fun when I have Tesla in it, and they're kind of like, what was that? But really, the love for my son is just amazing.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Now we've come to the segment of our show where I'll ask you some rapid fire questions, our version of a game show. Are you ready?
I'm not sure if I am, but we'll give this a shot.
If you had to choose the forest or the beach?
Oh my gosh, I would take both, but I would probably say the beach first.
Okay. How do you start your day?
I have a stretching, kind of a yoga exercise routine I do every morning that no matter what time, where I am at, every morning, that is the first thing I do.
Excellent. What's your favorite number?
567. If you look on the phone, if you look up J, it's 5. My middle initial is M, is 6. And my last name being Snyder, S is 7.
So that's nice. 567. Sunrise or sunset?
Probably sunset. This morning I saw the sunrise. It was gorgeous, but I don't get up early enough to see it very often.
Okay. And what is one thing you do every day, no matter how busy you get?
Stretching, yoga, exercise routine.
Thank you very much. That was the end of the game show. That was easy enough. Thank you for playing along. Before we wrap up, we'd like to do our green pill moment.
Okay.
What was your green pill moment, the action or event that was the turning point for you or your career?
Well, my son being born, and we knew we were high risk for having Down syndrome, but we never did an amnio to find out because no matter what it was, we were going to have him. And in the delivery room, the doctor, he was starting to crown and start coming out, and the doctor turned around and said, who wants to pull him out? I'm like, you're kidding me. I will never get this question again. I immediately went over there and pulled him the rest of the way out, and I was the first one to hold him. He was a little bit bluer than you would see in the movies because they always come out so bright and fleshy and everything. He still hadn't started breathing yet. And holding him in my hands, and I literally thought, there's no way this kid has Down syndrome. He just looks so normal to me. Hours later, I'd find out that I was completely wrong. But that moment, it was just amazing.
And then all the decisions you made later on in life was often related to him and making life better for him in the future.
Yeah, having a disabled child, whatever that disability is, changes your life significantly. Changes your relationships, their siblings, your relationship with your family, your spouse. All those are impacted greatly by having a disabled child.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. We really appreciate that. Was there anything else you wanted to share before we say goodbye?
The one thing that I think is going to happen with, I think your question, increasing awareness and shifting towards sustainable practices. The death tolls are predicted to rise from the boomers, which COVID pretty much already started that process. Our death numbers are going to increase greatly again. Hopefully not as bad as it was during COVID. We realized during COVID how overburdened the funeral industry becomes. Quickly it gets overwhelmed. California specifically has eliminated gas-burning cars by 2035. One cremation is the equivalent of 10 cars on the road. We've also eliminated natural gas appliances by the year 2030. There's a ton of natural gas that's used during a cremation. Taking those two things into mind, how much longer is normal cremation going to be viable? And we're going to do something. I think that Acquamation, water cremation, is the best eco-friendly option that we have access to at this time.
That's a very valid point. Thank you for sharing that. Again, thank you, John, for being here today. It's been a fascinating discussion. As you say, not something people talk about too often, but I've really enjoyed that. Before we say goodbye, could you please tell our listeners where they can find and follow you? And we'll also put this in the show notes.
Yeah, for Agape Aquamation, it's agape-aquamation, either /pets or /info for more about the human side of things or people. The pet company for doing the services and stuff is Pets Cherished. The website is up and running, petscherished.com. We're still working out the contact information and emails and stuff like that, but they can go there and get some information. And by the time they hear this, we should be fully operational with that.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And again, thank you for being here today. I've really enjoyed this. And I wish you and Acquamation all the very best. And we'll certainly be following your journey as well.
I appreciate it. That'd be awesome.
If you enjoy our conversations, please like and subscribe. See you next Wednesday.